So let's just start with this idea. What if the act of dying, or almost dying, wasn't just an end? What if it actually, literally, rewired your brain? Not in some metaphorical sense. I mean physically changing how you think, how you feel, and how you see the entire world. Because honestly, that's exactly what the data is starting to show.
Now look, I get it. We've all heard the stories, right? The white light, the tunnel, floating above your own body. And it's so easy to just file those away as, interesting, but it was probably just a trick of a dying brain, something like a weird dream. But what if that simple explanation just doesn't fit the facts?
To really see why, let's talk about Tom. Tom was a 57-year-old electrician, just a totally regular guy. He wasn't religious, had zero interest in any of this stuff, and then one day he had a massive heart attack, right there on his kitchen floor.
For 4 full minutes, his heart was stopped. Now, by every clinical definition we have, Tom was dead. But when the paramedics brought him back, he wasn't confused or scared. He was peaceful. And he told them he'd watched the whole thing, watched them working on him from the ceiling. And this right here is where the real mystery begins. This leads us straight into what neuroscientists are calling the brain paradox. And it's the first huge piece of evidence that challenges, well, everything we think we know about how our minds work. See, the second your heart stops, the brain is starved of oxygen, and it shuts down fast. Within just 10 seconds, it starts going dark, and by 20 seconds, all the measurable electrical activity that powers your thoughts, your senses, your entire reality, it just stops. It flatlines. 0. That is the number that matters here. The brain has gone offline. The system is down. There should be nothing. No complex thoughts, no organized memories, and definitely no vivid, life-changing experiences.
So, if the machine is turned off, where is this all coming from? How is it possible for someone to have the most profound, most hyper-real experience of their entire life at the exact moment their brain isn't even working?
But wait, because brand new science is throwing a curveball. A huge study in 2023 actually recorded the brain activity of dying patients, and they found something shocking: a massive surge of gamma waves, the exact brain waves linked to heightened consciousness, right at the end. So it seems the brain doesn't just go quiet, it goes out with a bang.
Okay, so a burst of activity might explain that something is happening, but it doesn't explain the what. If your brain was just misfiring, you'd expect total chaos, right? Random images, nonsense. But that is not what people report. Instead, we find these patterns, these consistencies, that are way more than just coincidence.
Just think about a fever dream. It's bizarre, it's chaotic, it's personal to you, and it makes absolutely no sense later. A near-death experience, though, people describe it as being more real than real life. It's structured, and it follows this incredibly consistent script, no matter who you are or where you're from.
Dr. Raymond Moody, the researcher who first named these experiences, found the same elements over and over. This feeling of incredible peace, the sense of leaving your body, seeing a tunnel with a bright light at the end, meeting loved ones who've already died, seeing your entire life flash before your eyes, and then reaching some kind of boundary, a point of no return. Tom reported every single one of these.
And that brings us to the most difficult thing for skeptics to explain away. It's something called a veridical NDE. And all that means is that someone comes back with objective, verifiable proof, information that they had absolutely no physical way of knowing.
So remember Tom? While he was dead, he saw that one of the paramedics was wearing these really specific, unusual shoes, a detail that paramedic later confirmed. Then there's the incredible case of Pam Reynolds. She was clinically dead on an operating table for a risky brain surgery. No brain waves, no blood in her brain, and she came back and described the unique surgical saw they used and repeated bits of conversation from the doctors. The entire medical team was stunned. How do you explain that?
But here's the thing. This isn't just a weird story people come back with. The experience fundamentally changes them, and it is no exaggeration to say that a completely different person returns from the other side. You can see it right here. Before one of these experiences, our priorities often look pretty standard: career, money, status, that kind of thing. But afterward, it's a total flip. All that stuff, the materialism, it just shrinks. And things like relationships, love, and a sense of purpose, they expand to take over almost everything. Tom put it so perfectly, he just said, money felt like it had lost its weight. Think about that. A year after his NDE, he gave away half of his life savings, not to some foundation, just to people around him that he knew were struggling. That is a deep, profound change.
And Tom's story is the norm, not the exception. The after effects are incredibly consistent. The fear of death? Gone. Completely. Material things become almost irrelevant. People find this deep sense of purpose. They feel this intense, unconditional love for everyone, and a lot of them even report a kind of heightened intuition. Whatever this experience is, it's permanently rewiring them.
So, where does all this leave us? Well, it leads us to the biggest question of all, doesn't it? A question about the very nature of consciousness itself.
To try and make sense of all this, some really serious scientists are now exploring something called the filter theory. The idea is basically this. Your brain doesn't create your consciousness any more than a radio creates the music it plays. The theory suggests the brain is just a receiver, a filter, that tunes into a consciousness that might actually exist outside of it.
So NDEs are forcing mainstream science to ask a question that not long ago would have gotten you laughed out of the room. Is consciousness something our brain produces, like a generator makes electricity? Or is it something our brain receives, and maybe at the moment of death, that filter just gets turned off? Now, it's not proven, but the fact that this is now a serious scientific debate is, well, it's amazing. So what do we do with this? You don't have to nearly die to learn from these experiences. The lessons are so clear. First, reconnect. Every single person who comes back says love and relationships are the only things that matter in the end. Second, ask yourself, what would you do if you weren't afraid? And third, just sit with the mystery. It's okay not to have all the answers. In fact, that's probably where the real wisdom is.
I want to leave you with one final thought, a question that researchers are digging into right now, and the answers they're finding are just stunning. Think about this. Do people who have been blind from birth see during their near-death experiences? The answer to that one might just change everything we think we know.